to Random Character Generator. Very excited about the return of this segment where we spin up a random character on D&D Beyond's character builder and come up with a story behind all of the numbers and choices therein. Very excited to welcome Brandy Camel, Community Manager for D&D, here. Hi.
Hi. Hi, Greg. How are you doing this morning?
Not too bad. Very excited. I'm still drinking my coffee and getting ramped up for the day. But I do want to acknowledge we used to do this segment with Kate Welch. She has gone on to amazing work in other games, and we're excited about that. But this idea is so fun, and Brandy, you and I have been working together and collaborating, and I can't wait to get together and do this for Random Character Generator. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I love creating new characters. I love experimenting with stories and things like this. So this is right up my alley.
So fun. All right, so let's get to it. I'm going to create a character right now, pressing the button, getting it going, seeing our character sheet here.
What we get?
Ooh.
Ooh, interesting.
Yanyris, a variant feral tiefling ranger.
Ooh.
Wow.
All right. This is interesting. We've got a really interesting spread on stats here too.
Yeah, 7 strength, some -2 modifier, not super high in dexterity, which is usually what rangers need, but a 13 with a +1 is not too bad. High in constitution and intelligence, and mid-grade on wisdom and charisma with a 10 and 11. That 16 constitution means that they're pretty beefy.
They are.
Yanyris is.
Beefy individual. This is like, honestly, right away from the top down, this is screaming to me like guide, right? This is somebody that you'd want to like hire out in the wilderness who, they've got lots in the way of their skills. They've got lots in the way of their hardiness. They know how to kind of survive in the wild. Like, that's kind of the vibe I'm getting right off the bat.
Absolutely. Do you happen to know offhand what a variant feral tiefling is?
I don't actually.
I'm going to look that up real quick. Because sometimes when these variants come up, there's different rules, and I want to make sure that we're talking about them. Yeah, so not all tieflings are the blood of Asmodeus. Some have traits that differ. And so this feral has an additional intelligence score, as well as dexterity increase. So that's they owe at least their 13 dexterity to this template that's being put on them. And instead of some of the spells that you would get as a regular tiefling, you get Vicious Mockery, which I kind of like.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, as well as Hellfire and Wings.
Okay.
Interesting.
It's definitely giving us a look now for this character, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's meaning that you can get one of these spells and or things. So Devil's Tongue, Hellfire, and Winged are the 3 options. Let's see what was chosen here for our friend. Get some spells. Vicious Mockery is what they get.
Gotcha.
Excellent. Interesting. Okay.
And they have Charm Person as a ranger, which is super interesting as well.
Yeah. Getting that, I guess it's story-wise is being told by them having a forked tongue that can do some of these spells at will. All right, well, that's interesting. Let's think about that for a little bit. I think a guide, maybe even in Avernus. What do you think about that?
Ooh, yeah, a guide in Avernus could be really interesting. Let's see, we've got... I'm really interested to see how the skills kind of play into this idea of a guide character, or maybe a guide character who isn't the best guide, but wants you to think so.
Yes, I like that too. So yeah, trained in history, insight, nature, which makes sense, stealth and survival, which also makes a bit of sense there.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. So, I mean, we've got the survival for guide. It looks like they picked up some cartographer's tools as well.
Yes. That is
Maybe
cool.
this
From
is
the
maybe this is
archaeologist background.
like a map maker.
Yeah, but I think they get that cartography from archaeologist, which they get the feature that when they enter a ruin or dungeon, you can very quickly ascertain its original purpose and determine its builders, as well as being able to know the monetary value of art objects.
You know, this is actually super interesting too. I really like the idea of this guide archaeologist in Avernus specifically, whether they're like exploring actual infernal ruins or maybe like the bits of Baldur's Gate that have fallen into the.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Kind of cool.
That is cool. I like that too. Okay. And here's something that may make them more trustworthy as a guide. Favored enemy is fiends. They don't like themselves.
Okay, so they've got some personal issues to work out.
Yeah. So what do you think about this idea? What if they were potentially on the material plane were not exhibiting traits of a tiefling, or especially a variant feral tiefling, but they fell from Baldur's Gate or El Torel, and somehow assumed these traits, although they have, vowed to, get revenge or seek out those who might have done this to them, assuming it was another fiend.
Yeah. No, I really like that. And actually glancing down a little bit at Natural Explorer, the landscape they have is Arctic. So this is kind of hilarious, I think. I think that this is somebody who is visiting Baldur's Gate before they were headed up to Icewind Dale, or maybe there's someone from Ten Towns who had left temporarily and just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
That's interesting. Yeah, I like that too. Okay, so they are a native of Icewind Dale and had traveled to Baldur's Gate. Maybe it's the first time they've been, in the big city, as it were. And then literally all hell breaks loose. And all hells breaks loose. And they get pulled down into the 9 layers of hell. Interesting. I wonder if they, maybe they're not in Avernus, but are they? Was it Stygia? What is the? Maybe I'm mixing genres or game properties there. But isn't there a layer of hell that is ice?
Yeah, that's ice.
So maybe they have, or maybe they're trying to get to there because at least that's something that they know. Mm-hmm. They're a ranger, but they have a style of fighting which is blind fighting.
Okay.
Which means that they have blind sight to a range of 10 feet, and then they can basically fight with their eyes closed with those that are close to them like that. Interesting. And their ranger archetype is Monster Slayer.
Monster Slayer. Okay. Wow, this is super interesting because I think we could even, this is an archaeologist. This is somebody who understands ruins and depths and things like that, but they're also a monster slayer. So maybe they've got a little bit more of that supernatural Indiana Jones vibe kind of going on.
Yeah, Indiana Jones is definitely a big part of Yanyris. What do you think their, assumed gender would be?
Yanyris. That's a pretty gender neutral name to be perfectly honest. You could go either way. You could make this a non-binary character.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
That could be really interesting.
Yanyris. Yanyris or Yanyris?
I really like Yanyris. I think that was where we went first.
Yep.
I like going with the gut instinct off the bat. I think that's maybe this is somebody who gets kind of miffed if they get called Ian.
All right, yeah, that makes sense. They're like, no, it's Yanyris.
Yanyris.
Cool. All right. So what do you think they look like? What do you think Yanyris appears to those who might meet them in the 9 hells?
The 9 hells. Well, I feel like being somebody who has that survival instinct or knows how to survive in their environments, they're probably going to embrace this tiefling background of theirs, so that they fit right in, maybe feel a little bit more at home and less like the, that outsider that maybe they're used to being on the prime material plane. So I know it was mentioned, did they actually end up with wings, or was that something that was just an option?
It was an option, yeah. So they don't have wings, but they do have Devil's Tongue, which gives them the Vicious Mockery cantrip and Charm Person.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so what color do you think their skin is?
Oh, gosh. So we have somebody who is... They do have the hellish resistance. So they have the resistance to fire damage.
Yep.
So maybe it's kind of a darker red hue, or you could actually, if you really want to go into let's go a little bit edgelord here. Maybe they have like a really dark, almost like the cracked lava.
Ooh, I like that.
Coloring. Maybe something like that.
Yeah, like fiery, as well as horns. Two curved horns. You think?
You definitely got to have the horns, right?
Yeah, not broken. They're still intact.
Mm-hmm. Still intact. I think this person is very young in their adventuring livelihood, right? It's level 3 is experienced, but still relatively young in your adventuring livelihood. So maybe there hasn't been an opportunity to break or crack. Maybe, or actually, if they fell in from Baldur's Gate, maybe they just have a crack in one of their horns.
That makes sense. It's a bit precarious, maybe hanging off in a way. Yeah. So how do you explain their low strength with a 7? That is really not there, and especially I was assuming they were not going to be doing a lot of ranged magic because of their blind fighting ability. Mm-hmm. But that puts them at a real disadvantage if they're only going to be doing hand to hand with a -2.
Well, you could go with like a finesse weapon. Right. So if maybe they're more of like the finesse style fighter, has a little bit of that swashbuckler kind of flair to it. Maybe we lean a little bit more into that Indiana Jones thing. Maybe they take a whip. That could be really
cool.
Fun.
Yeah. Is the whip a finesse weapon?
I think it is. Now, admittedly, I'm a very long time player and tend to get my editions mixed up.
I know. I would do the exact same thing.
I know it used to be. I don't know if it still is.
It is, in fact, and a reach weapon. So that's perfect for 10 feet. They are able to use their whip and zoom out and get anybody with it. That makes a lot more sense. Because of the blind sight, I don't know why. Maybe it's just because of my proclivities of playing MMOs recently. But do you think they cover their eyes a la Illidan?
Oh, a la Illidan?
Yeah.
Honestly, I've actually been watching a lot of Star Wars Rebels lately, so I went straight to Kanan.
Oh. Either one works.
But yeah, no, I think this could be somebody who either actually is blind or is somebody who is actively training themselves to use that as an advantage.
And this is just a crazy idea, but what if after they've been pulled down into the 9 hells, they just couldn't bear what they were seeing? Like it was just this like awfulness. It was the opposite of Icewind Dale that they had known and loved and, can't wait to go back to. And so they covered their eyes out of, fear or superstition and don't want to, behold the horrors in front of them.
Yeah, not be reminded of their heritage or, the side of themselves that they really want to push away.
Yeah. What do you think?
I love that idea. That's really cool and unique.
Awesome. All right. Well, I got a visual now of Yanyris and what they might look like. What do you think their demeanor is like? What do they act like when adventurers might meet them, or you might see Yanyris adventuring up in the land?
So I'm seeing, kind of leaning on the skills here. There's not a lot in the way of social skills, but they do have insight. So this to me reads as somebody who is all about reading people, but not necessarily interacting with them. This is a people watcher, right? Someone who goes into a situation and tries to assess it and then makes their decisions based on that, but they're probably going to avoid talking as much as they can.
Yeah, I like that too. Like they would be wanting to keep private in a way as much as possible and only reach out with a vicious mockery when they meet new people. Maybe they're hard to get to know.
Mm-hmm. This is the kind of person who I'm totally going to make a pun here. This is the kind of person who lashes out both like literally and verbally. Right? They kind of have this theme going on now.
Oh man. Maybe every quip that they perform with a vicious mockery actually has a whip sound. Punctuating it every time.
Oh, that's amazing.
I like that. It's cool. So as far as their spells go for rangers, they have Detect Poison and Disease, Ensnaring Strike, Long Strider, as well as Protection from Evil and Good. Why do you think those were chosen?
Well, the protection from evil and good. I mean, this is a suspicious person, right? We haven't even talked about this person's potential alignment.
Ooh,
so
yeah.
we don't know whether they might be protecting themselves from good. They might be also protecting themselves from evil. Like maybe they sit in the neutral bucket and they're kind of equally suspicious.
Yeah. I mean, that brings a good point. I mean, we talked about Avernus, and one of the kind of wild cards in that campaign is the folks who are running their war machines. Mm-hmm. So maybe they've taken up with one of that gang, or are forming their own.
Oh, I could see that. I could definitely see that, especially with something like Ensnaring Strike, which is that's really meant to capture people, to get the upper hand advantage when you're chasing somebody down. So. Maybe they've joined with one of the gangs that's like stealing people's souls or gathering up soul coins. Like,
yeah. And I had a visual of the Ensnaring Strike looking like their whip instead of usually it's that vines and everything, like grabbing a hold of them is a visual I get. But what if it's like leather or demonic hand or devilish hands that are grabbing and ensnaring them.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I could definitely see that, or something that's like brambles instead of just like vines, something that's a little bit darker or more sinister.
Absolutely. And then of course Long Strider is always good when you're going long distances, and Poison and Disease, being able to stay away from that is always good. Mm-hmm. Although they do feel like an otherworldly character, Yanyris does.
Yeah.
What do you think they sound like? What is their voice? How would you portray them?
So something I actually noticed down here was in their languages.
Yes.
They actually have Marquesian, which is a wild mount, like as an Exandria language.
Oh.
So that's kind of interesting.
That is interesting. I am not as learned in that world as you might be. So where are the Marquesians from?
So Marquette it's kind of got this sort of Middle Eastern vibe to it a little bit. Marquette is largely like a desert kind of area. I compare it a lot to like Kalimshan in the realms. So that's a language that kind of it has a little bit of that that clicking and tilt and lilt to it. At least that's the accents that Matt used most frequently. You would find Marquesian used a lot more in Campaign 1 than you would in Campaign 2, because it's on the other side of the world. It's in Tal'Dorei as opposed to Wildmount. So
yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of got that sort of vibe to it.
I like that. Well, what if I'm trying to figure out how they might know that language if they came from Icewind Dale and were pulled into the Nine Hells. But one thing we can say is that perhaps the Matt's creation is just part of the multiverse of D&D, and a Marquesian was also somehow a soul that Yanyris met below and became bonded and or friends with a Marquesian, and that's how they've learned it in Hell.
So it could be somebody who has kind of, maybe this is somebody with like an average, either American or British, like kind of run of the mill accent, but they have the ability to swap into other tongues very easily. Like they pick up accents and languages very easily.
Yeah. And maybe has a Marquesian in their crew.
Mm-hmm.
What is Nosh? I don't know what Nosh is.
Nosh is one that I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, so they also know a unknown language to us, which makes sense. I mean, they have a fairly high intelligence as well as the archaeologist thing. So maybe it's a dead language that they know, like a Sanskrit or something that they can dole out when pressed for knowledge or something like that.
Oh, Nosh is also an Exandrian language.
Oh,
okay. That's interesting. That's one that I'm not familiar with. Like, this is we're getting into like the weeds of Exandria lore here.
I love that. All right. Well, I mean, that means to me that Yanyris has got a crew, or at least 2 or 3 people from other parts of the multiverse, Exandria and Tal'Darai, 2 parts of the universe created by Matt Mercer in Critical Role. That's fascinating. I love all that. So this person has as you said, an American or British accent. They don't speak a lot, right? I guess I would assume. And if they do, it's with a cutting tone.
Probably. This is probably someone who's very curt with people. Very, very straight to the point.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've got a pretty good picture of this character. Do you want me to start describing it and get it all in summary here?
Yeah. Let's do that.
Okay. So Yanyris was an archaeologist from Icewind Dale. Did not have any tiefling traits before traveling to Baldur's Gate. It was their first time going to a big city. Very excited to enter the Society of the Sword Coast, having grown up in Icewind Dale in relative obscurity, but that's why they are familiar with surviving in Arctic landscapes. In Baldur's Gate, during the events of Descent into Avernus, when parts of Baldur's Gate and Elturel fell into the first layer of hell, Avernus, Yanyris went with them, and somehow during that fall transformed into a feral tiefling, and has made it their goal to wipe out as many fiends as possible, but as well as is learning as much as they can on this plane, and trying to find out what's going on using their cartography skills as well as their knowledge of ancient civilizations to find out more. They have experienced a friendship, or at least a companionship with at least one soul from Exandria or Tal'Darai, and learned their language through that. Personality-wise, they're aloof, a little bit separate from the rest of the group and society, despite the companions that they might have, and attack with a whip, having blinded themselves with the horrors of what they see in Avernus. If anybody's played any of that campaign, they know that it can be an extremely disgusting and vile place, filled with noxious smells and terrible sights. And so they chose not to see what was around them, but had learned to attack with a whip in a 10-foot radius around them using their blind fighting technique.
Sounds like a pretty solid, well-rounded character.
Yeah. Yanyris. Anything else we missed as far as their skills? They're able to, they know about history. They're able to kind of find out some better things about people just by taking in some of the details around them. But they can also survive and have good stealth for sneaking around Avernus for when danger from fiends or others kind of threaten them.
Yeah. This sounds like someone who's pretty well equipped to survive Avernus.
Definitely a survivor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're able to slay larger monsters. Maybe they've even killed one of the higher fiends with their companions. Maybe that's what drew them together. But they're able to know good from evil, as well as travel long distances and trap those souls who may be less fast than they are. Definitely, we've been using the they pronoun. I definitely think of Yanyris as a non-binary character, and has a lava red skin, as well as 2 horns curved backwards. One is cracked, and they sustained that injury perhaps while falling, even as they discovered that they had horns. Injuries were had, and you might be able to meet Yanyris in your travels in Avernus. What if you were to meet them? What might they say, Brandy?
Oh gosh, what might they say? Probably something along the lines of, I mean, this is a kind of a suspicious person, right? So this is someone who's like, well, what are your intentions?
I like that as a catchphrase for sure. Awesome. Yanyris. Well, thanks. This has been really fun. I love this character. I want more folks to, think about ways to use these stats and what comes up randomly and assemble a storyline. And I think this works out really well. Thanks, Brandy.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me.
What, if people want to follow you and perhaps ask you some questions about this character, where can they find you?
Honestly, the best place to find me is on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Dainty, DAYNTEE.
Awesome. And we will be putting the link to Yanyris, as always, in our show notes. And if you end up using them in your campaign or just as an NPC, definitely shoot us a note, me and Brandy. I am @GregTito on Twitter, and we'd love to hear from you. So very exciting. Thank you. And I'm very excited about the return of Random Character Generator.
Yes.